We are going to discuss introduction to advanced Java. In that, in the advanced Java concept, in the advanced Java we have discussed different types of concepts. That means one is JDBC, that is Java Database Connectivity, and other concepts are Solets, JSP, like that. So, but in our syllabus we have only JDBC concept. So now we can discuss about in this we are discussed only JDBC. That means in the advanced Java, JDBC is there. That means how to handle the databases and how to do the server side programming. That is server side programming is implemented through the servlets. Okay, and JSP concept, that is Java Server Pages, and other concept is Java Beans. Next, RMI EJBs. That means advanced Java contains JDBC, servlets, JSP, Java Beans, RMI, EJB. So out of these all concepts we have only JDBC concept in our syllabus. Now we are discussed about this.
మ్యామ్ వినిపించడం లేదు.
Okay. Java contains some advanced concepts. In that, one is the JDBC concept. This JDBC concept explain how to connect the databases, and next how to implement the server side programming. That means suppose whenever we can retrieve any application from outside, otherwise we can send some application or export our application the web. How it is possible? So that is possible through this server side applications, that is by using servlets. Next we are another concept is that is JSP, that is Java Server Pages. So in this Java Server Pages we can implement business logic as well as front end coding as well as back end also. And coming to these Java Beans, we can create some Java Beans and remote method invocation, that is RMA is nothing but remote method invocation. That means we can invoke the method from remote area as well as we can upload some method to the remote. That means how to implement the distributed applications. Next, EJB, that is Enterprise Java Beans. So these are the different advanced Java concepts are there. In that we have only one concept, that is JDBC. That means how to handle the databases. That means suppose whenever you can enter, that means whenever you can join in the first year, once can join in the first year, first you can register your details. That means user student registration is there. So this student registration, in that you can enter all the details. Okay, so these all details are where these all details are stored in the where. That means these details are stored in the back end. That means in the second year you can discuss about that is what SQL concepts. So SQL uses in the MySQL we can create some tables, in that enter some data. Okay, this is what. So how to connect that database to front end. That means after entering the details, those are stored in the database. Suppose whenever you can retrieve something, that means you can give some student ID. So all the details are displayed. So all these details are displayed from the database. So database నుండి మనకి డిస్ప్లే అవుతాయి ఫ్రంట్ ఎండ్ పైన. దట్ మీన్స్ ఏంటి, సపోజ్ మీ మీరు ఎగ్జామ్ కంప్లీట్ చేశారు, దాని రిజల్ట్ చూడాలి. దెన్ నెక్స్ట్ ఏమి ఇస్తున్నారు, మీ హాల్ టికెట్ నెంబర్, మీ కోర్స్ ఇవ్వగానే whenever you can click on the submit button, automatically your result is displayed. Okay, that is what your details are stored in somewhere else, some database. How those are project on the window. So మనకి ఆ విండో పైన ఎలా ప్రొజెక్ట్ అవుతున్నాయి, ఎలా డిస్ప్లే అవుతున్నాయి. ఫర్ దట్ we can write some programs. So in that different programming languages are used. Here we are using this Java. So through the Java, how the database is connected. So by using JDBC concept, that is Java Database Connectivity. This is the technique. Using this technique, databases are connected to these applications. Okay, and a standard application. This is a standard application program interface for all Java programs to connect the databases. Suppose whenever you can write any program, so there you can connect some database to your Java application. So you can import some package So that package is java.sql package. So whenever we can import this java.sql package, automatically, so we can implement, that is connect the database to your application. That means whatever the data you are entered through this Java application, that can stored in the database, as well as whatever data you are retrieved from the database. So based on your requirement, the data is retrieved and displayed on the window. So this type of coding is possible through this Java database connectivity. Now here for implementing this JDBC concept, here two packages are there. One is a SQL package, java.sql package, and other one is a javax.sql package. Okay. So how the JDBC applications are implemented? So here JDBC defines a few steps how to connect the database and how to retrieve the data from the database, or how to insert the data into database, or how to update the databases, and how to delete the databases. For that, a few steps are there. That means whenever we can write any application using JDBC, the main intention of this JDBC is backend. That means through this Java we can write the front end coding, how to display and how to enter. So this is what we are writing through this JDBC concept, sorry, Java application. So now this application is used to enter something or display something, so or update something. So where it is done? On the database. How the database is connected? Using this JDBC concept. So for accessing the data from the database, or insert the data into database, or update the database through this Java application, here JDBC used. For that we can write some program. In that program it contains some steps. So first load the driver, okay, then establish the connection, next create the statement, next execute query and obtain the result. So next iterate through the results. So these are the 5 steps. First load the driver, establish the connection, create the statement, execute that query, next iterate through the results. So these are the steps. Now we can discuss about one by one these steps. Here before discussing one by one these steps, first see here load the driver. So what is the driver? Now see here, the driver is loaded with the help of some static method. That is class. Class is the class dot for name. So this for name is a static method. Here you can pass the driver name. So the purpose of this driver is which type of driver we are using. That means here mediator, that means database is there and front end is there. How these two are connected to these drivers. Here every database has its own drivers. That means how to connect the Oracle MySQL to the Java. For that it has its own driver. So my MS Office, so this is also some database, and that is SQL. So these all are the different types of databases. How these databases are connected to the Java application. So for that we are implement JDBC concept. So that first we can load the driver. So the purpose of this driver is which type of database we are using here. Okay. So that means every database has its own driver. Okay. Now driver is nothing but some program. So how to connect that? So for that all the JDBC drivers have been classified into 4 categories. So these are the 4 categories. Out of these 4 categories you can use any one of the driver to implement a Java applications. So first one is a JDBC ODBC bridge driver, and next native API or partially Java driver, next net protocol driver, next pure Java driver. So these are the 4 different types of drivers are there. So first before make the connection, first we can discuss about these drivers. So here every driver, every database has its own drivers. So these drivers are categorized into type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 drivers. Now MS Access, so this is the driver name, sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc ODBC driver. Coming to the Oracle, oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. So these all are the packages, in that this is the class is there in here. Now Microsoft SQL Server. So this has its own, that means this is a, because of this is the Microsoft product, com.microsoft.sql server, in that JDBC.sql server driver. So this MS Access driver name is JDBC ODBC driver. Oracle driver name is Oracle driver. And coming to the Microsoft SQL Server 2000 driver name is SQL Server driver. And coming to here MySQL, so this is what the driver, that is org.gzt.mm.mysql.driver. So this is the driver. That means each and every database has its own drivers. Now we can discuss about one by one all these 4 drivers, that's the type 1 driver, type 2 driver, type 3 driver and type 4 driver. Now we can discuss those drivers in detail. So first of all, see here what is the JDBC driver. Okay. So JDBC drivers implement the defined interfaces in the JDBC API for interacting with your database server. That means the drivers nothing but the purpose of these drivers are used to interact with that corresponding server. Now, so suppose using these JDBC drivers enable to open database connections and to interact with by sending SQL or database commands. That means how we are interact with the databases. That means databases to ఎలా interact అవుతాము అంటే by using these JDBC drivers. So these JDBC drivers enables us to open the database connections and interact with it. So how we are interact with the databases through the SQL or database commands. Okay, here 4 different types of database JDBC drivers are there. So those JDBC drivers are type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 driver. Now we can discuss about these drivers. That is a type 1 driver. So in the type 1 driver, a JDBC which is used to access ODBC drivers, that is open database drivers. So these open database drivers are installed in the client machine. That means ekkadaithe mana program rasnamo that we are called as a client machine. Now using ODBC requires configuring on your system a data source name. That means ekkada manam మన database ఇస్తున్నాము, the database source name. Next, when the Java first came out, so this was a useful driver because most of the databases only supported ODBC access. But now this type of driver is recommended only for experimental use or training purpose. That means suppose see here, suppose you can observe here JDBC API is there. So from this JDBC API, so in our client machine ODBC application program drivers are there. So these drivers are used to how to use the, that means what is the database source name, okay, DSN, and database driver, that means which database we are using, so that data can retrieve from this database. Now here, so this is what the JDBC ODBC driver. Then next JDBC native API driver. That means in type 2 driver, JDBC API calls are converted into native C or CPP calls. That means here JDBC calls, that means API nothing but number of that means number of system, that means calls only, calls in the sense function calls. That means so that it contains some number of methods. So these all are converted into C and C++ application program interface calls. Now which are unique to the database, and every database ki unique calls are there. So these drivers are typically provided by the database vendors. That means database vendors means suppose MySQL, so that is a database vendor. So this database vendor is provided by this JDBC native API and used in the same manner as JDBC ODBC driver. This is the vendor specific driver, must be installed on client machine. Again this is also like JDBC ODBC driver, so this is also there in our client machine. So if we change the database, we have to change the native API also. And suppose manam SQL database kaakunda access database ichcham anukondi, automatically the native application program interface ni kuda change cheyali. So as it is specific to a database, and these JDBC native API is specific to database, అంటే ప్రతి database కి ఇది different గా ఉంటుంది. And but you may be realize some speed, that means compared to the type 1, this type 2 is speed, because here ODBC overhead, that means ODBC is removed here. So now see here how it is possible. Suppose in this case, now see here native API, that means JDBC driver is there. So instead of OPI, so for every particular that means specific drivers are there. Suppose you are using the MySQL, that driver is there. Suppose you are using that means what is that, if you are using SQL driver is there. In the previous case open database connectivity. Open database connectivity API drivers are there. So based on the data source name and database driver we can. That means initial ga ikkada emundi manaki ODBC overhead is there. Open database connectivity undi. And in this case there is no open database. So native API, that means whatever the database you are used here, the database driver is used here, connected to this. So from here database is connected. That means suppose you can change a driver in your program automatically. So this native you have to specify that particular native driver is what. Suppose SQL is different and MySQL is different. Alage access is different. So like that. And coming to the type 3 driver. Now, so this is the JDBC net pure Java driver. That means in a type 3 driver, a 3-tier approach is used to access the databases. That is, a JDBC client use the standard network sockets to communicate with a middleware application server. Next, the socket information is translated by the middleware application. Now see the figure first. Goes to here. So net protocol driver. That means here some type 3 driver is there. So this type 3 driver is connected with some middleware. That means some in the networking. So through the networking we can connect these databases here. So for that go to here. So this kind of driver is extremely flexible since it requires no code installed on the client machine. In the previous case, type 1 and type 2, both the cases we can install the software, that means drivers. But whereas coming to the whenever you are using type 3 drivers in your JDBC application, no need to install any drivers. That means any kind of driver is this kind of driver is extremely flexible since it requires no code installed in the client machine. So now you can think of the application server as a JDBC. That means JDBC is the application for that the front end. So ikkada em chestunam manaki here. So this is what front end. So this is the back end. So madhyalo manaki కనెక్షన్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ కావాలి ఫర్ దట్ టైప్ 3 డ్రైవర్ అనేది యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాం. సో ఇక్కడ నుండి డేటా కనెక్ట్ చేసేసి ఇక్కడ డిస్ప్లే చేస్తుంది. సో దిస్ ఈస్ ఫర్ ద నెట్ ప్రోటోకాల్ డ్రైవర్. సో నెక్స్ట్ వన్ ఈస్ అ ప్యూర్ జావా డ్రైవర్. సో దిస్ ఈస్ JDBC API now connected to type 4 driver, directly connected to database. So this is called as a pure Java driver. That means here, so use that means whenever we can write any, that first see here in a type 4 driver, a pure Java based driver, it communicates directly with the vendor's database. That means suppose MySQL ki connect చేస్తున్నాము. సో డైరెక్ట్ గా MySQL కి కనెక్ట్ చేస్తాము, అక్కడ నుండి డేటాబేస్ అనేది రిట్రీవ్ అవుతుంది. నో థర్డ్ vendors are required. This is the highest performance driver available for the database and usually provided by the vendor itself. Okay, this type of driver is extremely flexible. No need to install any software requirements in the client machine. So here type 3 is also same, but here in the type 3 networking programming is required. This networking programming is required. So coming to here, there is no networking, directly connected with the databases. So this is pure Java driver. So these are the 4 different types of drivers are used. So which driver, that means whenever we can write any applications, which driver is preferable? That means either you can write any JDBC application, then we are using type 1 driver, type 2 driver or type 4 driver. So which driver should be used? If you are accessing one type of database, only one type of database you can access, Oracle, Sybase or IBM. So in that case you are preferred type 4 driver. Suppose this type 1 driver is not considered a deployment layer, so I typically use it for development and testing purpose only. That means learning time lo gaani, testing time lo gaani. So alanti case lo it is very easy, type 1 drivers. So because coming to the type 2 driver are useful in situations where a type 3 and type 4 drivers are not available yet for your database. And the type 3, type 4 drivers, that means first priority goes to the type 4 driver because it's a pure Java driver, JDBC driver or Java driver. And if you are not aware of this available this type 4, then move to type 3. But here some networking is required And coming to the type 2 driver, suppose if 3 and 2 are not available, then move to type 2. So but this type 1 is available. So this is not a deployment. That means ఏదైనా ఒక అప్లికేషన్ మనం డెవలప్ చేసి దాన్ని ఒక ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్లోకి డిప్లాయ్ చేస్తున్నాం అనుకోండి, అలాంటి కేసెస్లో we prefer this type 1 driver. This type 1 driver is not preferred. Okay. Next here coming to this, here suppose you can observe why these type 1 drivers are not used. That means suppose go to in this, suppose you can observe here that if you are using the type 1 drivers, so this much of work we can do. That is, suppose this is an example of JDBC ODBC bridge driver in the Windows environment. First open the administrative tools. So these administrative tools are there in the control panel. So go to control panel, in the administrative tools are there. In these administrative tools, so you can move to data sources. Click on here on the data sources. So right click on these data sources. So after that you can change this data sources name and click on that. Okay, this is open. So this is the data source name. Here target is like this. You can change this target. Okay, now the change the target, and next after this you can click on OK button here. Then next move to here a DSN name. That means we are our database is in Microsoft Access, so that you can select this one. So Microsoft Access driver, add this one. Okay, after that you can click on this add button, and next here this is add button. Just directly add this Microsoft Access driver in this data source. Okay, next finish. Okay, next you can use the finish. So then here select the table. So database lo manaki number of tables untai. You can select the table. That means insert your own data source name. So as your wish, you can give some name and click on the select button. You can select your database. That means మీరు access open చేసేసి నేను మీకు చూపిస్తాను. సో యాక్సెస్ ఓపెన్ చేసేసిన తర్వాత ఇక్కడ మనకి డేటాబేస్ నేమ్ వస్తుంది. సో ఆ డేటాబేస్ నేమ్ని ఇక్కడ సెలెక్ట్ చేస్తాం. సో సెలెక్ట్ చేసిన తర్వాత ఇప్పుడు ఆ డేటాబేస్లో ఏవైతే టేబుల్స్ ఉంటాయో అవన్నీ కూడా మన అప్లికేషన్లో యూజ్ అవుతాయి. సో నో సీ ద ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఫర్ దిస్. దిస్ ఈజ్ ద ఎగ్జాంపుల్. సో ఫస్ట్ దిస్ ఈజ్ ద టైప్ 1 డ్రైవర్. నౌ కనెక్షన్ చేసాము, ఆ తర్వాత స్టేట్మెంట్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తున్నాము, దెన్ నెక్స్ట్ రిజల్ట్ సెట్, సో దెన్ నెక్స్ట్ ఎగ్జిక్యూషన్. ఓకే, సో బిఫోర్ డిస్కసింగ్ దీస్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ కోడింగ్, సో ఫస్ట్ వీ కెన్ డిస్కస్ అబౌట్ దిస్ ఈజ్ ద టేబుల్ ఫామ్లో డిస్ప్లే అవుతుంది. So this is what the second one. So next this is the type 2 drivers. So every type 2 drivers examples. So first we can discuss these concepts. So these are the 4 drivers. The next loading the driver. So how to load the driver? So for that we are use this static method. That means this is the first statement. So this is what class dot. This is what class dot for name. So how to load the driver in our JDBC application? That is class dot for name. Here you can pass these names: JDBC, ODBC, bridge driver name and native. So these names. So the names are like this. These are the names. You can pass these names. Next, here establish a connection. How to establish the connection? That means a connection to the database is established using the static method, get connection method. Okay, get connection. So set your database URL where your database is there. That database URL here. So of the data manager class, data manager dot get connection. Data manager is the static class. In that get connection is the static method. Here you are pass database name where your database is there. Now the database manager class is a class for managing all these drivers, JDBC drivers, whatever the drivers till now we have discussed 4 drivers. Those drivers are managed by this driver manager. So how we are specify the database URL? So the database URL is like this, JDBC colon subprotocol colon subname. Okay. Now that is if any problem occurs during the accessing the database, so it raises the exception as SQL exception. Okay. So that means during connection or that means whatever the table you are connected, the table is not existed. Suppose some database is not exist. So in that suppose some connection is not established. In that case SQL exception is raised. Otherwise connection object is returned. So that means whenever we can execute, that means how to establish the connection means, so whenever we can invoke this static method get connection on this driver manager class, so pass the URL. If the whatever the URL passed here, that URL contains some database source name and some database name. So if it already exists, it returns some object, that is a connection object. Means if the connection object contains something, then connection is established. Otherwise if the connection equal to null, so there is no connection established. Okay. So here few database URLs. How we are giving the database URLs? That means these URLs are given here. These URLs are given here. Next, this is for MS Access, JDBC, ODBC, your DSN name. For Oracle, we can give the host name and port name. That means where that is, on which host that is run and on which port that is run, what is the ID. Okay, then next here also we have passed the host name, port name and database name also. That means database name you are given here. These are the different and whatever the different data types, databases we are using, but specific database URLs are there, like specific database drivers. Now after this, create the statement. How the statement is created? Now once the connection is used to send the SQL statement to the database, that means connection is established. Now we can prepare the statement object. The statements objects are different. That means 3 statement objects are there. Okay, so these are the 3 interfaces. Okay, one is the statement and other one is prepare statement and callable statement. Suppose whenever you can run any query in SQL, that is select query or insert query or delete query or any other query, so along with some data, suppose while you are inserting, you can enter some data, so that type of statement is simply we can call this statement. Okay, suppose prepare statement. Suppose you can prepare some statement, so that statement is that query is executed more than one value. Suppose while if the student table is there, in the student table, suppose you can enter 4 rows. So every time you are executed insert method, instead of executing every time insert method, just you can change the values. Okay, so that that type of statement is created by using prepare statement. So in the callable statement, what is the purpose of this callable statement? Suppose in PLS, suppose you can execute any procedure or any function or any triggers like that. We are using this callable statement here. So for this connection object, how this statement object or prepare statement object or callable statement object are returns. So this is returned by using 3 methods. 3 methods. So how this? That means whenever we can invoke some method, that is a create statement method on connection object, it returns statement. Otherwise, whenever we can call the method prepare statement, so in that case it returns prepare statement object. Otherwise prepare call method, so in that case it returns prepare statement object. So these all are we are explaining the one by one in our classes. Okay, like see here, prepare statement, it returns the prepare statement. Prepare call, it returns callable statement. So here a prepare statement object sends a pre-compiled statements. Pre-compiled statements means whenever suppose insert query is executed for more than one time with different values. So first query is compiled and after that you can change the values. So that type of query is called as a pre-compiled statement. So for this we are using prepare statement object. If n rows needed, for example, if n rows needed to be inserted, then the same statement gets compiled n number of times. Okay, so to increase the efficiency, every time we are not written the insert query. So instead of writing the insert query, we are writing only one time insert query and enter different values. Now that one time whatever the query we are writing, that is called as a pre-compiled prepared statement. So how this pre-compiled prepared statement is created in the JDBC by using prepare statement. So you can pass here prepare statement, here you can pass the string. Means what? Here you can pass the string, that means insert something into table, there you have prepared some prepare statement. Now it create the prepare statement object. So sometimes we can call the stored procedures. So in that case we are using prepare call. So there you can pass some string, that means execute some function. Now it returns something, so that is stores into this callable statement. So after this is the third step, that means load the driver, establish the connection, then prepare the statement, create the statement. Then next execute the query. That means after completion of this one, we can execute our queries. That means either there is an insert query and whatever the statement we are prepared on the connection object. On the connection object we can prepare or we can create the different statements. Either simple statement or prepare statement or callable statement. So whatever it may be, it is executed after by using some methods. Those methods are called as execute methods. That means here execute query method is there. So this execute query method and execute update method, execute method. So these are the three methods. Execute whatever the string we are passed here, that is the query, insert query, select query or update query or delete query. So whatever the query we are passed here, that is execute on these statements. Either that is the create statement or prepare statement or callable statement. On these three statements our query is executed. So after executing our query, it returns some result set if it is a select query. Suppose we are passed here some select query, in this case it returns the result set. Suppose other than select query, that means insert, delete, update. How many number of rows inserted, how many number of rows are updated, how many number of rows are deleted. And these are written. Suppose coming to here execute, pass here select query or non-select queries. That means insert, update, any query. But in this case we can pass only select query. In this case we can pass only insert, delete and update queries. Okay. Whereas coming to the boolean we can pass select and non-select, means select, update, anything. We are passed here. Okay. So this execute query used to executing SQL statements. Executing SQL statement. Now this SQL statement that return a single result set. It returns some single result set. It returns some single result set, means that result set contains what are the rows returns. That means this execute query is used to execute SQL statement that returns a single result set. Okay, this is the result set. This is executed on the statement object. Execute query, here we are passing select query. So once it is executed, it returns what? Result set. So now we can return from here. So other than this, that means select query, that means other than select command, DDL commands and DML commands are executed through this execute update method. That is insert, update, delete, create, all these methods are executed by using execute update methods. So it returns an integer value for DML to indicate the number of rows affected. That means while inserting how many number of rows, while updating how many number of rows are affected, for deleting how many number of rows are deleted. So this is what here. And 0 for DDL statements. So for 0 DDL. So if the not written anything and manki create చేసినప్పుడు అది క్రియేట్ అవ్వలేదు అనుకోండి రిటర్న్ 0, అదర్వైజ్ ఇట్ రిటర్న్స్ 1. Now after this, how to execute this one. by using how to after execute the query, so how to set the values, how to display the values. That means prepare statement is prepared, that is update. Now after updating, so here question marks are given, so these question marks we can set. That means from left to right, these are called as a parameters. So this is 1, this is 2. So for first one is the salary, set int salary, where employee id, so this is also some id 2, this is in the alphanumeric, so that within the colons. సో ఆఫ్టర్ సెట్టింగ్ అంటే ప్రిపేర్ స్టేట్మెంట్ ఎప్పుడైతే యూజ్ చేస్తున్నామో అప్పుడు క్వశ్చన్ మార్క్స్ ఇస్తున్నాం కాబట్టి బిఫోర్ ఎగ్జిక్యూటింగ్ దట్ క్వెరీ, సో ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ యూ కెన్ సెట్ దీస్ వాల్యూస్. So by using set methods, so if it is an integer, you can set it like integer. If it is a string, you can set like this. Suppose here 1 or 2, nothing but what? This is one first parameter, this is a second parameter. Okay. Now after executing this method, so based on this one, how many rows are effective? So that is returns integer. Okay. So this is what the execute query. And suppose whenever we can return any select query, so that select query stores result is stores into result set object. Now one by one we can display. That means suppose if employee table contains 2 columns, so string 1 and get string 2, that means first column and second column, those values are displayed. Okay, so this is what the how load the driver, establish the connection, next create the statement and execute that statement. Okay, after that you can close all the objects. So this is what simple introduction regarding JDBC. Thank you.